Welcome to Peter and Rob and company, and the main talking points tonight on goodbye to Celtic and joins Southampton in an £11.5 million deal. Islam Feruz returns to Scottish football on a loan deal at Hibernian. We'll sum up the best of the action as far as the weekend's concerned, and also look at some of the other transfers taking place on the final day. And we'll also look towards Georgia on Friday and of course Germany on Monday, and we'll do it all in the company of not only Alan Rough, but I'm delighted to say Dundee midfielder Gary Harkins. Every time Gary's on the show, Roughie, we end up building a new studio. So here's hoping the next one is even better than this one. Gary, great to have you on the programme. I think the first thing we have to say is we had reinforced the chair, but suddenly there's a pre-season, you're on a new diet, you're faster, you're leaner, everything's looking great, the manager's raving about you, the assistant's raving about you. What did you do? Tell me and Roughie so we can get on the same plan.
I've not ate since the last time I was on the show.
It's been a great start for you though, hasn't it?
No, it's been good. I think personally I feel good and the team are doing well. We should probably win a few more games, but hopefully they'll come.
Yeah, I mean, it was 1-1 at the weekend. Is that one of those games again where you maybe thought you should have taken maximum points?
Oh, it was one I think we had a lot of the ball. Maybe never created as many chances as what we should have done, but towards the end of the game you're thinking we can go on and win this, and we're probably unlucky not to take the 3 points.
Yeah, Roughie, I think both of us have Dundee, not just because Gary's here, but I think both of us think definitely top 6. You know, I mean, I had them even higher than that, but you know, the results haven't gone their way yet, but there's a long way to go. And as I said to Gary before we come on air, if you can keep the strikers fit, suddenly you have options.
Yeah, there is a long way to go, but obviously Gary and Dundee will be looking at Inverness and looking at Dundee United, looking at the teams who were automatic top 6s, and now opportunity for teams like Dundee to claim that 4th, possibly 3rd position.
Yeah. I've got to ask you, you would have trained with Ricardo Calder. He's in on a loan deal from Aston Villa. What do you make of him?
Fast. Very. No, he was quite look good. Sharp, young, hungry, so hopefully he can take his form into the games and give us another option. Yeah,
we were sweating actually because we thought to ourselves, oh no, a midfielder. And
we've done him.
we've got to mention to Gary it's his last game, Roughie.
It would have been hands in his head on this desk today.
Is there any chance you can send Gary Calder down? Send Ricardo down instead. But it is options. It is something significant, Roughie. And as we look at the deals coming in, I don't think it's any great shock. Virgil van Dijk, the first one that screams out at you, £11.5 million. I think it's a fantastic bit of business by Celtic.
Oh, and the money side it is, it's unbelievable, you know, the money, the ability over the last 4 or 5 years to turn over the Wanyamas, you know, and make money, big money, and they went out immediately. Unfortunately, for some Celtic fans, it's maybe horses bolted. You know, the Champions League, it would have been great if they'd done it maybe 3 months ago. I know it's difficult to get players in when they're still in the European competitions, but yeah, but at least they're showing their intent for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and Ryan Christie on a 4-year deal. He's obviously going to be loaned back to Inverness Cali Thistle. And the Croat 21-year-old central defender, I think it's Jose Simonovic, will be, I think, by the end of the window, a done deal. It would make sense, Roughie, if there's a huge gap there with Virgil van Dijk gone.
Yeah, it's a big act to follow. Van Dijk has been absolutely superb. Just strolled through most of the games. And the guy coming in obviously will have to be up for it, but it's nearly a whole new back four, so it's good for the Celtic supporters.
Yeah, one other man, Gary, that I think we read so much about him when he was going through the Celtic youth, Islam Feruz. He went off to Chelsea. It didn't please a lot of Celtic fans. Suddenly, Hibs have come in and got him on a loan deal.
I know, it's a good move for Hibs, or you would think so. With the time he spent down at Chelsea, hopefully he's progressed and he could be a big figure for them this season now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people raving about this boy's qualities, Roughie. We don't know because we haven't been able to see him in the flesh, but we're going to get a real insight into him over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for the boy, maybe I'm being unfair to him, but there was a wee bit of baggage started following him off the park. You know, a lot of maybe disciplinary stuff and all that carry on. But as Gary said, he's went on in years now. He's obviously matured and in the footballing side, I'm sure that Hibs will get the best of them.
Yep, that's just one of a number of deals. Another one that I've got to draw your attention to, Roughie, at your old side, I was surprised by this one. Robbie Muirhead from Dundee United to Partick Thistle on loan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dundee United, you would have thought with the amount of players that they'd lost that Robbie would have got a game. It didn't look that way. Obviously he's not figured very highly in any of the first team games, so maybe it's him that's went to the manager and said, look, I need to be playing, and if you're not going to play me, let me go somewhere and prove to you that I can do it. I mean, they did it with the boy Erskine. You know, he went to Partick Thistle and then went back to Dundee United as a better player.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Roughie. It's almost as if we had rehearsed it, although with yourself and me, I know it's not been rehearsed, but here is indeed Robbie Muirhead trying to emulate what Chris Erskine achieved at Thistle.
That's what the gaffer mentioned yesterday with Squiddy. That is how, it was if he came down here, that was just 2 years ago, and then he went back to United, and then at its year later, that was if he won his player of the year, so hopefully I can emulate that.
Sometimes getting a chance to play regularly, Gary, can kickstart your career again.
Yeah, I think with Chris especially, I think just needed that wee bit of confidence to show that he could play at that level. And he went back to Partick Thistle, which was comfortable from him, and he showed that he could do it. And then when he went back to Dundee United last year, he was brilliant. So if Robbie can do the same thing, it'd be good for Robbie. I know him from my time at Kilmarnock, and he's a nice boy, works hard, and hopefully he does well.
Yeah. The other deal that I think a number of Scottish clubs will have been slightly miffed at is Stevie May. I know there were a few of them chasing him, but in the end he's opted to go to Preston. There was a few clubs in the Premiership could have done with his goal scoring exploits.
Yeah, I think there's about 3 or 4 that I know of that were trying to get him, and I'm not sure with Stevie, but I think probably just staying in the Championship was the lure for him, and he'll maybe go and kick on at Preston and find himself filler up.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more than a few deals that will, kick in as we head towards the midnight hour, Roughie. There was a time when we used to actually stay up and chase these stories, but the market's been so depressed here. I mean, if you're down in England, if you're a journalist down there, you're chasing everything right to the wire at 6 o'clock, and most of these guys are now having, a few beers because all their work's done. But in Scotland, it's not as hectic. But again, I think everything goes in cycles. The market will pick up.
Yeah, I think it will, and I think it's 12 o'clock tonight for us. I think there still will be deals as we're sitting here trying to go through. Maybe ones we might be surprised with, but I'm sure every supporter out there loves new players coming to their side, so I think they'll be actively trying to get some people in. Yeah,
just a couple that I've got to mention, just rather than miss out on them. As players come in, sometimes other players sneak out the door without anybody noticing them. I'm thinking about Sepovic at Celtic to Getafe on loan. Bo Richter, I'm not quite sure how that'll all pan out as well, but Andy Murdoch from Rangers has joined Cowdenbeath on loan, Robbie Crawford to Alloa, and Owen O'Connell, another Celtic player, joined Oldham on loan. So as you can see, managers, as well as bringing in people that they think can do a job, as Gary mentioned with Ricardo Calder, suddenly you have to get players out that will be on the fringes.
Yeah, I mean, Gary touched on it there just now. When you're a footballer at a club and you can see, I mean, you know with the selections that the manager's got, whether you're in the plans or not in the plans, and everybody, it doesn't matter what age you want to play. So it's good that managers are listening to players and saying, look, it's not working for me here, let me go somewhere else. Because there's nothing worse than being at a club and you're not getting a game.
Watching.
Yeah. We will talk Scotland in the next part of the programme. Just before we get to the break, from a personal point of view and from the manager's point of view, obviously managers always want more points, but is there a feeling of, okay, it's good, it's going to get even better at Dundee?
I think that's the way everybody's thinking. I think we're playing well in patches. We've been a bit slack at times, and that's when we end up losing goals. So if we can go on the season and get better that way and keep playing the football that they're playing, I think everybody thinks that we can kick on and be a lot better than what we were last year.
You guys played against Hearts. Is there there's been a lot of hype surrounding them. They lost their 100% record at the weekend. What have you made of them since they came back up from the Championship?
I think they've done well. As I said, first half I think we were the better team and could have been a couple of goals up, but they showed a good bit of character, come back and end up winning the game and beating us. So no, they've showed well. I thought it was a little bit like the Hamilton effect as they had when they came up the year before, when they kicked on for a good few months and were right up the top of the league. So it's whether they can bounce back from their first defeat and see if they can and keep up their form.
Yeah, the more the merrier, Roughie. I think that's what we need for as long as possible in this division.
Yeah, I mean, as a neutral, you know, you want to see clubs challenging. You want to see. We all know that Celtic are obviously going to win the league, but we need as many teams challenging as possible. It makes it exciting.
Okay, more from Gary Harkins. The Dundee midfielder is with us here as our bookroom guest in the studio. Roughie and myself will think about Georgia. That's on our mind. It's been a pun that's been used non-stop, to be perfectly honest with you. We'll talk Georgia next. Welcome back to Peter and Roughie's Football Show. Monday to Friday, we're on STV Glasgow and STV Edinburgh, and on the Saturday, 2 o'clock till 6, keeping up to date with all the goals as they hit the back of the net, right across the Premiership, Championship, League 1 and League 2 in Scotland, and of course, looking at events down south as well. Hopefully you can join us this Saturday. Roughie and Gordon Smith will be here with me, and as ever, we always like to bring in a special guest on a Saturday to take us through the 4 hours as well. Join us if you can. The second part of the programme, I think Scotland dominates our thoughts. Is it a time when, you know, if even professional footballers who want to see Scotland do well, is it exciting for you guys to see us on the verge, close to qualification, Gary?
Aye, obviously. You're a Scotland fan at the end of the day when you go and try and get to the games or watch them on the telly, and it's good to see us playing good football and looking like a football team and going taking games to these good teams and looking like we've got a chance of getting to one of these big tournaments. Yeah,
I can only think back, Roughie, to when we were out there in Georgia and it all came crashing down for Euro 2008. You just wonder what might have happened had we won that game that night.
Yeah, I think we all looked at that game. We knew we had Italy coming up, but we thought if we'd won that one, we had a right good chance to qualify. But I don't know about you, one of the things I remember about that night was it was a real hostile environment. I mean, their supporters, we always talk about our supporters at Hampden, it's a fantastic atmosphere to play in, but certainly over there I thought it was very hostile, and their team got up for it. They got really up for it, and we just lost goals at bad time. Yeah. And obviously we never won it, and then obviously the Italy game came fast and furious after that.
Yep. My overriding memory of that, Roughie, is getting in a taxi with you and thinking we weren't going to live much longer. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah, just quickly, I remember getting into a taxi, going down to your hotel. The taxi, the windscreen was all smashed. There was one window wiper, and the rain was absolutely pouring in. And I'm looking at the taxi driver, and he's going, "What's the matter?" And I'm going, "Can you see out the window?" Because I can't.
It was one of the most outrageous trips of all time. But listen, hostility or not, Scotland have a job to do, Gary, and there's no excuses now. They know what they have to do. If they could get the 3 points, suddenly we're lifted for a game against Germany, albeit we know the class of the Germans. But when you consider, you know, the great performance we put up against them in Germany, you know, it would lift the whole nation.
If we can get the win Friday in Georgia, it will set the boys up, give them a lot of confidence going into the game against Germany, and you never know what can happen if we play as well as what we played the last time. They have an off night, you could get the 3 points or a draw out of that game as well, and it'll kick us on.
Yeah, and we've been out listening to some of the Scotland camp over the last 24 hours, and yesterday I caught up with Mark McGee because of course Georgia have a new manager. They're out of the race in this group, but Mark McGee gave us the lowdown on them.
Well, it's not because we know, you know, the potential that they have. We know that they're not, you know, a sort of bottom pot country. They're not. They find themselves, you know, having slipped, and I'm sure they're going to try and recover quickly. Historically, they've had good players and they've had good teams, and I think they'll bounce back to that, and I think they're capable of it on the night. So we won't be surprised by that. You know, if when we go there, we will be ready for Georgia's best performance, not for, you know, hoping that they're going to play badly or they're going to show up as a fifth pot team. They're going to turn up as, you know, the best they can be, and if we take that approach, then we won't be taken by surprise.
I think it's a good point that Mark McGee makes, Roughie. It's quite simply, we can't hope the Georgians are off the boil. If they're playing at their best, we've got to be at our best and hope that is good enough.
No, I think they're one of these teams that are really stuffy. I mean, we saw it at Ibrox, you know, that they can sit in, they can defend, they're hard to break down. Even with them in Poland, it was only 1-0 with about 7 or 8 minutes to go. So we have to break them down first and foremost, there's no doubt about that. But he's right, you know, we need to put in a performance and not worry about what they're doing.
Yeah, I hate to commit you to this, Gary, but who would you go with? We are obviously, my gut feeling is he'll go with Fletcher up front. People are putting Lee Griffiths forward because of his domestic form.
Well, knowing Griffiths, he'll get you goals. You could probably not see him for 88 minutes and he'll come up with a couple of goals towards the end. It just depends on how Scotland want to play. If you're looking to, probably the same way Dahlia plays Shifke, if you're wanting to hold the ball up, I think Fletcher will maybe be a little bit better than that, but even then, Griffiths a great option to come off the bench.
Yeah, who would you go with, Roughie?
I would stick with Fletcher with Naismith supporting him. I think Naismith has got a big part to play. I think he is. He's one of these guys who gives you everything, and he's always there or thereabouts. And I think if we stick by him, he could be the match winner.
Yeah, and of course Everton rejected a late bid from Norwich for Stevie Naismith, and clearly Alec Neil was looking to his qualities to try and bolster his squad.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, obviously, the more players that Everton bring in, Stephen seems to be getting less game time, you know, which might have swayed him. But I think when we spoke to him a couple of months ago, he's determined to be a permanent addition in that team, and all credit to him for turning it down.
I think he's one of those players, Gary, that epitomises what Scotland's squad's all about under Gordon Strachan.
We played Everton a few weeks ago in pre-season and he was playing, and I was impressed with him. Just his awareness and his touch and his playing, how hard he works. So if he can bring that kind of form into the squad, then we've got a great player there.
Yeah, another player playing down south and just returned to English football is, of course, Sean Maloney. He's now with Hull City after the move from the MLS. Yesterday, we were getting his thoughts on the game against Georgia. Is it win or bust?
I think if we were hoping to qualify automatic, I think it's an important match. I think I read what the manager said, and it's pretty true that you're just never quite sure where this big match is. I think it's just the next one. So it's this Friday against Georgia, and then again, no matter what the result is, the pressure will then build again to the Germany game, and then obviously next month it starts again, and it's very difficult to make one sort of prediction that one game is that definitive within the group.
I love Scotland players. They do everything they can, Roughie, just to avoid saying it is win or bust. For me, it has to be 3 points.
Yeah, you would think so. If you look at the section, obviously with Poland and Germany coming up, it would be. And we touched on it earlier there. You don't want to go into the Germany game on a downer. You want to go into the Germany game with a win behind you. Players are all up for the Germany game. The fans are all up for the game, and you want to go into the game with a really confident thing about you, and I think we'll win. I think we will win. I think Gordon's got them really organised that we don't lose that many goals now. We just need to score some. Yeah.
You confident, Gary?
Yeah, this time it's one of those games in the past you'd have been sitting thinking this is where we'll fail, this is it, but myself, I think we'll win this tonight.
Yeah. The funny thing I was going to say to you, Roughie, when they were holding the press conference, they had inside the brewery, they had old images of previous World Cup squads in 78, 82 and 86. It was almost as if I could chart your life and your hairstyle through each World Cup tournament. There you were, and ever present.
Yeah, it's amazing, 3 World Cups in a row. It's fantastic to think back in the success we had, but I think it all stemmed down to the players that we had. Then the Douglashes, the Sunuses, the Hartfords, incredible players of their time. And it just became a formality that you would go there every 4 years.
Oh, hey, what about that for a blasé attitude, Gary? It's hard to believe. And what's going to make Gary and myself even more sick is the fact that you thought you were going to get into... You could have had 4 World Cups. Were you thinking...
Germany, yes. I was the 4th shout for Germany. I think I was only 23 at the time, and I think it was Jim Stewart went instead of me. And that might have been 4, but there you go.
Were you close?
It was close, yeah. It was between Jim and me. I think Jim had made the move down to England, so he got the preference.
Okay, one man who was speaking yesterday was Stuart Regan, the SFA Chief Executive. Just briefly, Roughie, I'm not going to ask Gary because I don't want him to lose 10 grand. but the referees have been defended by the Chief Executive because he mentioned the fact that, 6 or 7 of them are refereeing at the top flight in European football.
Europe, yeah, they're being selected, yep, there's no doubt about that. But Gary's right, that there are decisions that is baffling us, and the main one is the handball. The interpretation of it just baffles me sometimes as well. So it's a hard shout, but a lot of the decisions, I think the players have got to have a look at themselves as well. If you're elbowing and putting your head in somebody, there's only one way you're going to go.
Yeah, okay, so we've run out of time. No chance to get a chance to talk about Robbie Nielsen's fantastic line from his post-match press conference, or indeed whether it's legal or not to handle the ball inside the penalty box and get it into the right position to score a goal for yourself. Still, enough about Adam Rooney. Thanks very much to Gary Harkins. Gary, we wish you all the best for this season. The new, lean, mean Gary Harkins strolling about with the cigars for Dundee in the middle of the park. Delighted to have Gary on board. From Alan Rough and myself, join us tomorrow if you can, 6:30. Good night.